recommending that people buy stocks today or tomorrow or next week or next month. I think it all depends on your circumstances, but you shouldn't buy stocks unless you expect, in my view, you expect to hold them for a very extended period and you are prepared financially and psychologically to hold them the same way you would hold a farm and never look at a quote and never pay it. You don't need to pay attention to them. I mean, the main thing to do, and you're not going to pick the bottom, and nobody else can pick it for you or anything of the sort. You've got to be prepared to, when you buy a stock, to have it go down 50% or more and be comfortable with it as long as you're comfortable with the holding. And I pointed out, I think a year, maybe 2 years ago in the annual report, I pointed out that there have been 3 times in Berkshire's history when the price of Berkshire stock went down 50%. There wasn't anything wrong with Berkshire when those 3 times occurred, but if you're going to look at the price of the stock and think that you have to act because it's doing this or that, or somebody else tells you, well, I mean, how can you stay with that when something else is going up or anything? You've got to be in the right psychological position. And frankly, some people are not really careful. Some people are more subject to fear than others. Fear is something I've really never felt financially, but I don't think Charlie's felt it either. But, some people can handle it psychologically. If you can't handle it psychologically, then you really shouldn't own stocks because you're going to buy and sell them at the wrong time. And you should not count on somebody else telling you this. You should do something you understand yourself. If you don't understand it yourself, you're going to be affected by the next person you talk to. And so you should be in a position to hold. And I don't know whether today is a great day to buy stocks. I know it will work out over 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I won't comment on the 3 companies that you've named, but in general terms, unless you find the prices of a great company really offensive, if you feel you've identified it, and by definition a great company is one that's going to remain great for 30 years. If it's going to be a great company for 3 years, it ain't a great company. I mean, so you really want to go along with the idea of something that if you were going to take a trip for 20 years, you wouldn't feel bad leaving the money in with no orders with your broker and no power of attorney or anything, and you just go on the trip and you come back and it's going to be a terribly strong company. I think it's better just to own them. I mean, we could attempt to buy and sell some of the things that we own that we think are fine businesses, but they're too hard to find. I mean, we found See's Candy in 1972, where we find here and there we get the opportunity to do something, but they're too hard to find. So to sit there and hope that you buy them in the throes of some panic, that you sort of take the attitude of a mortician, waiting for a flu epidemic or something. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm not sure will be a great technique. I mean, it may be great if you inherit it. Paul Getty inherited the money at the bottom in 32. I mean, he didn't inherit it exactly. He talked his mother out of it, but yeah. It's true, actually.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough, right? But he benefited enormously by having access to a lot of cash in the early 30s that he didn't have access to in the late 20s, and so you'd get some accidents like that. But that's a lot to count on, and if you start with the Dow at X and you think it's too high, when it goes to 90% of X, do you buy? Well, if it does and it goes to 50% of X, it gets you never get the benefit of those extremes anyway, unless you just come into some accidental sum of money at some time. So I think the main thing to do is find wonderful businesses. Is Phil Carre here? We got the world. Yeah, there's the hero of investing. Phil, would you stand up? Phil is 99. He wrote a book on investing in 1924. Phil has done awfully well by finding businesses he likes and sticking with them and not worrying too much about what they do day to day. There's going to be I think there's going to be an article in the Wall Street Journal about Phil on May 28th, and I advise you all to read it. You'll probably learn a lot more with him by coming to this meeting. But it's that approach of buying businesses. I mean, let's just say there was no stock market, and the owner of the best business in whatever your hometown is came to you and said, "Look, my brother just died, and he owned 20% of the business, and I want somebody to go in with me to buy that 20%. And the price looks a little high, maybe, but this is what I think I can get for it. Do you want to buy in?" I think if you like the business and you like the person who's coming to you, and the price sounds reasonable, and you really know the business, I think probably the thing to do is to take it and don't worry about how it's quoted. It won't be quoted tomorrow or next week or next month. I think people's investment would be more intelligent if stocks were quoted about once a year, but it isn't going to happen that way. So, and if you happen to come into some added money at some time when something dramatic has happened, I mean, we did well back in 1964 because American Express ran into a crook. We did well in 1976 because Geico's managers and auditors didn't know what the loss reserve should have been the previous couple of years. So we've had our share of flu epidemics, but you don't want to spend your life waiting around for them.
You have said that your favorite time to own a stock is forever, yet you sold McDonald's and Disney after not owning them for long. How do you decide when to hold forever and when to sell? And also, are you and Mr. Munger wearing Fruit of the Looms?
Charlie? I think I better answer the question. I can answer unequivocally, I am wearing Fruit of the Loom. And I'm not sure whether Charlie wears underwear, do you?
I haven't bought any new underwear in a long time, and therefore I'm inappropriately attired.
He's waiting for a discount. Don't let him kid you. Well, the answer, it's a very good question about selling. I mean, it's not our natural inclination to sell. And on the other hand, and we have held the Washington Post stock since 1973. I've never sold a share of Berkshire, having bought the first shares in 1962. And we've held Coke stock since 1988. We've held Gillette stock since 1989. Held American Express stock since 1991. We had actually previously been in American Express in the 60s in Disney. So there are companies we're familiar with. We generally sell, we would sell if we needed money for something else, but that has not been the problem in the last 10 or 15 years. 40 years ago, my sales were all because I found something that I liked even better. I hated to sell what I sold, but I also didn't want to borrow money. So I would reluctantly sell something that I thought was terribly cheap to buy something that was even cheaper. Those were the times when I had more ideas than money. Now I've got more money than ideas, and that's a different equation. So now we sell really when we think that when we're reevaluating the economic characteristics of the business. In other words, if you take don't want to name names, but take a stock we've sold of some sort. We probably had one view of the
long-term competitive advantage of the company at the time we bought it, and we may have modified that. That doesn't mean we think that the company is going into some disastrous period or anything remotely like that. We think McDonald's has a fine future, we think Disney has a fine future, and there are others. But we probably don't think that their competitive advantage is as strong as we might have thought, as we thought it was when we initially made the decision. That may mean that we were wrong when we made the decision originally. It may mean that we're wrong now, and that their strengths are every bit as what they were before. But for one reason or another, we think that the strengths may have been eroded to some degree. A classic case on that would be the newspaper industry generally, for example. I mean, in 1970, if Charlie and I were looking at the newspaper business, we felt it was about as impregnable a franchise as could be found. We still think it's quite a business, but we do not think the franchise in 2002 is the same as it was in 1970. We do not think the franchise of a network television station in 2002 is the same as it was in 1965. And those beliefs change quite gradually, and who knows whether they're precise, whether they're right even, but that is the reason in general that we sell now. If we got into some terribly cheap market, we might sell some things that we thought were cheap to buy something even cheaper after we'd bought lots and lots of equities, but that's not the occasion right now. Charlie?
Nothing to add.
He's been practicing for weeks.